time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Paige starts now.
Indeed it does. Great to have you with us on this Friday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. A very busy Friday. Tino Pattigno will be here from SiriusXM NASCAR Radio and Tubi to preview this week's race in Iowa. Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online, is here to talk about Shannon Sharpe and the mess that is his career now over at ESPN. But we start things out in Major League Baseball, and we talked a great deal yesterday about the trade deadline. David Ardsma hung out with us on the show, and today we bring in Cameron Maybin, the former MLB All-Star. You catch him on Foul Territory, hanging out with us on the program. So I looked at a lot of your comments on X as it related to the trade deadline, and we all sort of watched what transpired. I want to start with the Yankees because I didn't know what the hell they were doing going into this deadline. They were just kind of picking and little Ryan McMahon here, a little Austin Slater there. And then all of a sudden, they load up in the bullpen, and it's something reminiscent of like the late 90s Yankees where they're just going to turn it into a 5 or 6 inning game with guys like Bednar, Doval, Weaver, and Williams on the back end of that bullpen. I love what the Yankees did at the deadline. They didn't give up anything to do it, Cameron.
Yeah, I think that's the most impressive thing. And then the old adage, right? Good things come to those who wait, right? So most Yankee fans were kind of stirring and kind of, wondering what Cash was going to do. But, once again, when you needed him to come through, Cash came through with, I think, the pieces they needed. I was a Ryan McMahon advocate the whole time. I think you can go back to my timeline. A lot of Yankees fans were all about Eugenio Suarez, and I get it, right? He's having a great year. He's on a heater. But I just thought, Ryan McMahon has not played inspired baseball in a very long time. He is an all-star. This is the guy that they moved off Arenado because they believe he had something special. So these are the things I don't forget when I'm thinking about Ryan McMahon. Then I think about Yankees analytics, Yankees information, being in that clubhouse. I know they're getting the right information to their guys, right? Whether they execute or not, that's on the player. But I just started to think, man, if you can get a Ryan McMahon at third base in Yankee Stadium, left field, short porch, this guy can use the whole field, playing some inspired baseball, I thought, that was a great move for them. And I thought it was the right fit, even over Eugenio Suarez. And then you talk about the bullpen, a much-needed bullpen. And I think we can nitpick and say, yeah, the Yankees need a starter. But like you said, at the end of the day, if we can get through 5, if we can get through 6, and now you can turn it over to those guys. And another guy who's starting to really look like his old self, and hopefully he can get going to Jonathan Loaisiga. If they can get Loaisiga and you mix him in with those guys that you just named, now talking about shortening up a game, the Yankees are right there. And we talk about defense as well. It's a lot easier to defend swing and miss when you have guys coming out the bullpen, and now we don't have to worry about defense as much as we've talked about with the Yankees.
Yeah, and Caballero, also because they have been terrible on the base paths this year. They're not stealing any bases.
Yep.
They're near the bottom of the league in that category. And you bring in a guy like Caballero who's got a little swagger to him and what he can do on the base paths and gives you some options from a utility standpoint.
And let me say this, too. Another thing that goes unnoticed, there's no stat for character, right? We love numbers. We love quantifying everything. I'm going to tell you another little sneaky piece that I really like, and I just noticed the little things. Amar Rosario, the dude just got in town, and he's like the first guy up on the top rail, the first guy out the dugout when something happens. Usually when you're a new guy, you try to ingrain yourself and kind of slowly try to entrench yourself in the culture. This dude's acting like he's been there all year. So those little pieces, those little glue guys that I think we don't have numbers for, we can't quantify the character. I'm watching like those guys bring people closer together too as you hit those rough patches, and you need guys like that to kind of spark the clubhouse and kind of keep things going when you have an Aaron Judge out and you have the starting rotation struggling. This guy brings the energy of like, I'm happy as hell to be here. You should too. So let's keep this thing going.
It was an electric trade deadline on Thursday, Cameron. I'm curious if you had to pick one singular move. There were monumental ones and there were tiny ones. What was your single favorite move that any team made this week?
That's a great question. That's a great question because I have two. I have two. Let me give you two, right? Because I can, and that's what the world we're in. Great question. I'm gonna give you two. One, I absolutely love what AJ Preller has done. I love the move for Mason Miller and JP Sears. We're going to call it one move because it was a package deal. So we're going to call that one move in itself.
Yeah.
But I think JP Sears, if you look at his last 10 starts, the dude has been really freaking good on the bump, right? And again, I think when you put a guy in a different uniform like the Yankees, all of a sudden that competitive nature goes up. And then Mason Miller speaks for itself. You add Mason Miller to that bullpen, come on, man. Like, now all of a sudden talking about shorting games up and getting into that staff, and you add that guy. I just love what AJ Preller does. You know, when I came up and I tweeted this, you know, a lot of the old heads used to say prospect means you just haven't done anything yet, which also was kind of a statement to be like, we'll trade a prospect in a heartbeat because he ain't done it yet, right? We want the back of the baseball card guys who've already done it. So I love that AJ Preller, he values prospects, but he also values trying to win now, especially in NL West that isn't sewn up. There's still a chance. So I really love what AJ did, but at the end of the day, I thought it was so cool to see the headlines, the Carlos Correa going back to Houston, right? Like, I know that might not be the move that pushes them over the edge, but I just love it. And then I just start asking myself questions like, why didn't you do it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Like, why didn't you just bring him back for what he wanted, you know? So so I love those two moves in particular, and I think, you know, for those fan bases, I think they should be extremely excited.
And you were on that team in 2017 when Correa was an up-and-coming young prospect and Altuve was still very early on in his career. Obviously, the Astros are going for it this year. What do you make of what Houston's doing?
Well, what I make of it is they're starting to realize, you know, and again, they play in probably, I mean, right now, you know, Texas is underachieving. Seattle, you know, we still don't know what their lineup is going to be. I love the move to get Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez, but their lineup is still night and day. You never know. Julio Rodriguez has not played like a superstar. He's starting to heat up of late. But I just, you know, that's a great question. I just think that the Houston Astros are starting to realize, back to the prospect move, they got rid of some of these guys, you know, Carlos and Breggy and Springer, and they thought, hey, we got some young guys coming up in control, and they'll be able to do it. But I think you're seeing that it's a different level when we talk about AAA in the big leagues, right? Like the gap between, like, even your top prospects, sometimes we've seen the big leagues just swallow guys up. And I think it's just one of those things where Dana Brown realized, you know what, we thought we had something special. And even Jeremy Pena, great, but he's no Carlos Correa. I'm sorry, he hasn't been Carlos Correa. He had a great playoff run when they did their thing, but he hasn't really lived up to that.
Cameron Maybin is hanging out with us. We're going to do one more segment with him on the baseball because I think there's a bigger question that all of this activity at the trade deadline points to. The former MLB All-Star, you see him on Foul Territory. You see him today with us on SportsWrap. Don't go anywhere. All right, we keep things moving on this Friday edition of Sports Wrap with Cameron Maybin, the former MLB All-Star outfielder. I loved seeing him in pinstripes. Just give me Cameron Maybin in pinstripes, man. Wasn't there long enough.
Hey, to tell you what, Jay, I told my agents, man, let Cash know I'll sign back for a big league deal on a league minimum just to come back, and they still didn't do it, but. That's just how much I love my time in pinstripes, and the fan base was amazing. I'm
sure it is. Let me get your thoughts on what all of this means, because I said this yesterday, and to me it all points to the narrative that's been created that everybody feels like they can win. I think more than any other year. I mean, yeah, Cleveland were sellers, but virtually everybody else that even has a remote shot at making the playoffs bought into this trade deadline in some way, shape, or form. Does that point to, A, the vulnerability of a team like the Dodgers, that people think, hey, all we got to do is get in and we can win a World Series? And especially in the American League, where it just feels so wide open right now, it's just a matter of who's going to get hot, you know, at the end of September and into October.
Yeah, and I also think what fans need to understand now, too, is, you know, this is as much parity in baseball that we've seen in a long time. And not just this year, the past couple of years, right? Even with the new playoff format, I thought, it now kind of incentivized teams to, hey, maybe we shouldn't sell and we should go get a few pieces. And I think this offseason was a perfect example of that. There wasn't the Juan Soto out there, right? That huge name, but what there was a ton of really, really good baseball players that, with the right moves and the right acquisitions, they could really bolster a baseball team. So you saw that, the Mets bullpen, the Padres, the Yankees, what they went out and did. There are a lot of teams, like you said, that just made the right moves. The Mariners, right, the right moves to give them a chance. And I think, this is what you want as a fan, right? This takes me back to 14 years ago where, when I was a Padre, on paper, when the season started, I thought Jason Bartlett, Mark Kotsay, Aaron Harang, Orlando Hudson, Chase Headley, myself, Will Venable, Chris Denorfia. I just thought on paper it was going to be competitive, even though we ended up last place. You used to put out a product that you thought as a fan base, we got a chance. Opposed to that, like, we're selling from the jump. I love now the parity where, a move here or there could really push your team over the edge. And I love that, and I think it's great for the game. And I talk about it all the time where people complain about the Dodgers, but let's check it out, Jason. Nobody's won a championship back-to-back years, right? So that'll continue to let you know the parity's been great, right? Like, that's the beauty of our sport. You can go put all these names together on paper, but you still got to go do it. And that's the beautiful thing about baseball. So I think this is great, especially going into the season where it looks like the Dodgers were building the Monstars, but you know what I'm saying? So, and now here we are. They look as human and as beatable as anybody in the league. So I love where we are as far as a parity standpoint.
Real quick, are you surprised the Red Sox didn't make any big moves other than the one pitcher with Mats?
I'm extremely surprised because I thought once they made that move, I thought they were kind of signaling we're all in, right? So I don't know if the asking price was too high, but I know if you're a Boston Red Sox fan, I'll just say that you have to be somewhat disappointed, right? Because I think you look back at a year ago, this team is athletic, they're fun to watch. You thought they had some really young pieces, and then they just, you go get Crochet, and then again, I think it's sitting on prospects maybe a little too long at times, right? So I think, I'm seeing that old adage. I like the guys that aren't just banking on these prospects and going, you know what, go get me a veteran guy who may be a little older, but he's still got some good baseball left, and I know the back of the baseball card isn't going to lie, right? I know what I'm going to get. Even if it's the floor, I know what that floor is. So, I'm a little surprised that they didn't go do anything, especially as open as the American League is. As you said, a move here and there, and you never know. You right back in this thing.
Cameron, throughout your decade-and-a-half-long career in Major League Baseball, you were a part of a couple of trades, including one at the deadline from Miami to Seattle. From a player's perspective, what is it like getting traded? Walk me through everything that happens on that day and leading up to that day.
Well, there are different scenarios, right? Early in my career, you don't know, right? You are just a prospect. You're a top prospect. And and even at the time when I was traded young, my Andrew Miller, myself, and about 4 other guys, I didn't even hear about it, right? I was playing PlayStation, went across the Xbox Live, and Cameron Maybin traded, and I was like, what's going on? I saw it on Xbox Live. But now here we are as I got later in my career, and you start to sign deals with like the Marlins, and hey, they're telling you up front, hey, we're going to bring you in. You're going to play a lot, and if there's opportunity to get a piece at the deadline, probably going to move you, right? So you start to have those conversations, and you start to become kind of aware of what your value is. And, I always looked at it like you're valuable. A lot of people say, you play with 10 different teams. Well, 10 different teams saw value in me somewhere, So for me, it gets a little unsettling as the clock goes now. You're looking at the actual time, and you're like, well, we're about 30 minutes, and I haven't heard anything. I got traded with like 2 minutes left during the COVID season from Detroit to Chicago to the Cubs. I mean, I'm talking about like a minute left. Like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. I think I'm good. Close my eyes, phone rings. Hey, we're going to send you the Cubs. Al Avila. Cam, you knew this is coming. You know what I mean? So, they kind of prepare you as you get a little older. You gain a little bit more respect for, what you've been through. The communication seems to get a little better. But, it's some sleepless nights, man. And, you grow relationships and I call it a brotherhood. You're not just friendships. You become brothers with guys in clubhouses. So it can be difficult, to move on, but it's a part of the business. And I think, if you're prepped right, you understand it, right? And again, you see value in yourself, and you see, that a team sees value in you.
Cameron, in the last minute here, post-trade deadline, how have you sort of recalibrated who you think is, the favorite to win this? Who's the most dangerous? If you're the Dodgers, what team are you looking at as the most dangerous? How do you sort of recalibrate now post-trade deadline?
You know what? That's a great question. And again, this is why I think I love this trade deadline so much, because there's still no one that I look at and go, they're the favorite. Like, they're the team, right? And like, it's still like, the Yankees need some starting help. You know, like who's going to get it together in their starting rotation? You still got to have guys go out and give you 4 to 5, hopefully, because we've also seen bullpens get worn out. The Mets bullpen looks incredible right now, right? But again, you know, they still got some holes in the lineup, if you ask me. Third base, center field, you know, outfield hasn't been as productive as you want. So there's still teams that I'm just eager to see what it looks like. The Correa move looks great. It seems like they're all in, but they still seem so far away in the big scheme of things, if you ask me, right? I think they can make a run with where they are. So nobody sticks out to me like that. But for me, I would have to say the Padres, honestly, because that bullpen is one of the best in the game. You go add another starter. You hope to get some guys back. You know, I'm looking for them to get back to what they did in that first 2 weeks of baseball. I think they still have that in there.
Catch them on foul territory as well. Always good to catch up with you, my friend. I know you've been busy, and I appreciate you making the time for us.
Well, we back at it now, my boy. We're done after this. I'm in Hoover with my son. We're done. So you'll be seeing me down the stretch, Jay.
All right.
I'll be here with you. You say, hold me to it. I got you.
SportsWrap rolls on, in the immortal words of Pat O'Brien. Talking about a whole slew of things. We did the baseball to start the show with the trade deadline, and Cameron Maybin hung out with us. By the way, I kept calling him former All-Star. I meant to say former World Series winner, Cameron Maybin. Wasn't an All-Star. I mean, he was in the minor leagues, but not in the majors. So I guess I wasn't completely inaccurate. I just need to be more specific. But a former World Series winner, and Cameron Maybin. And Sam said something to me. He goes, you realize he was a World Series winner. He wasn't an All-Star. And I was like, oh, shoot. My bad. This guy's an All-Star. Look at that. Look at that mug. The great Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online, hangs out with us every Friday on the show. I just love that the mic always matches whatever there's always a matching thing going on.
You got to coordinate, like Pop said. You got to coordinate.
I love it. I'm curious because you've had a few days to let it soak in, and so have I. This news about Shannon Sharpe. When he settled this lawsuit with Tony Busby and the Jane Doe that was involved in this civil lawsuit that accused him of sexual assault and rape, he said, hey, I'll be back by training camp. I'll be back on ESPN. Did you ever think that was realistic? And how surprised were you that ESPN decided to let him go this week?
Yeah, I would say I was 50-50, on it. I mean, ESPN did say that it was okay for him to make that statement initially. And I do think they were trying to see exactly how it played out. There were certain things that came out after that statement that maybe caused them to pause a little bit. I think they were waiting to see if he made a settlement before making a decision. And then they just decided that, maybe he was just too, toxic at the time to bring back. I'm a little disappointed. It's sad because let's just be honest. There's some questions about the credibility of the young woman and the credibility of the lawyer, Tony Busby. And you wonder, should someone be punished if it is indeed a shakedown? But then on the flip side of that, you also have to say Shannon should have probably been smarter about the individual that he was dealing with, someone of her, age. So in that regard, it's kind of a push and pull type of situation.
But there are people that will say there are people that will say the settlement is in some way an admission of guilt, isn't it?
This is just my opinion. I think in this particular situation, I do think that's sometimes true, but I think in this particular situation, that video that Tony Busby pointed out that was out there, no matter what is actually on the video, you just can't have that coming out. It just seems, no matter what the interpretation of the video was, I think there were certain things, maybe photos, videos, audio, whatever, that he just couldn't have come out if he wanted to continue on in his media career. And so it's just, sometimes it's just better to settle. I always say, think about Deshaun Watson. The first settlement would have been $100,000, and we'd have never known about the other 23, 24 people. In hindsight, sometimes it's better to settle and not ever have it come out than kind of what happened with Shannon.
Couple of things to throw onto this. Is that the end for him as far as broadcast opportunities are concerned? Is that going to be the end of the line for him? Are we basically talking about a guy now that's just going to live in the podcast space?
I think for now, yes. I do think television is changing with streaming. There's more outlets now. There's different ways to get on, quote unquote, TV. I think as long as he continues, the nightcap and the club Shay Shay continues to be successful, I do think there will be a time that a network or a streaming service says we need a big hire. We need a splash hire. And his name is going to come up. But I think at the moment, I think he should just stick to, what he's doing that's been successful. Hopefully nothing else comes out, and then we'll see maybe in a year or two, what happens.
I wonder, and I've theorized this over the last couple of days, if ESPN at least drawing some line in the sand and saying, okay, this is a bit too much for us. Pat McAfee defaming some poor college girl and her life basically being ruined where she can't even go to school anymore. We can kind of live with that, even if he apologizes 5 months later. But this rape allegation, sexual assault allegation, settling this civil lawsuit, that's a little too far for us. If you're McAfee, are you worried?
No. I think, unless he did something like that. I do think some would say it's hypocritical, but I think there is a line. I think McAfee pushes that line, but he has such a different type of contract in the way that he does business with ESPN.
I think he's done at the end of this deal. I do not think he's coming. I do not think there will be a second. I will go on the record right now. Ooh. I will bet you a healthy steak dinner. And I'm not talking like Outback Steakhouse dinner. No offense to Outback. I'm talking. They got
good bread at Outback.
I'm talking good. I'm talking good steak dinner, like Morton steak dinner.
I think they're willing to put up with it because they want that particular slice of audience. They think they have the best of both worlds. They got the Stephen A. audience and they got the Pat McAfee audience. And I think that's why they gave him $100 million. That's why they gave Pat $40 million or whatever a year. I think they're going to continue to try to roll that train as long as it can go.
I see. I have a feeling that this is the start of them pulling back, bringing in a Rich Eisen, who starts back up in September on ESPN Plus, putting him in the same time slot that they put that they have McAfee in. I think there is a gradual shift in the philosophy at ESPN that they just don't want to have to sit on the edge of their seats every day and wonder if, one of the stooges on McAfee's show is going to sit there and say, oh, maybe Christian Wilkins grabbed, another player's private parts.
Yeah,
I can't believe I've got to say this on television.
They take it to a line. They definitely
do, and they've taken it beyond it at times. Yeah. And that's why I don't think there's going to be a second deal for him. I really don't. And again, maybe I'll turn out to be wrong, and if I will, I'll be the first one to stand up here and say I got it wrong. But
then Aaron Rodgers can come back on and talk about, all this conspiracy theories and stuff.
Oh my God,
freely.
I was watching the stuff with him. We only have a few seconds left in this segment, but I was watching him on Wednesday or whatever day he was on with McAfee this week from Latrobe, and it's just such a suck up fest. It's like, my God, Ahmad Rashad. Michael Jordan had Ahmad Rashad, and Aaron Rodgers has Pat McAfee. That's kind of the way it is. I got more I want to get to with our friend Robert Littal, the founder of Black Sports Online. Are we not giving enough credit to Paige Bueckers? Because I'm looking at her rookie year and I'm looking at Caitlin Clark's rookie year and I'm going, what's the difference? I think Paige could wind up being better than Caitlin. Yes, I said it. Coming up in 10 minutes, Tino Pattigno does a great job on NASCAR with SiriusXM NASCAR radio on the weekends. Also on Tubi, you can see him. Bubba Wallace getting a big win last weekend. How awesome was that? I actually was tearing up watching that. I was so happy for Bubba, who is
more run than the mainstream media. I wish I would have saw it more. That was a cool thing.
It really was. And first black driver ever to win at Indy, which is, an amazing thing unto itself. And the hatred that guy receives, and nothing was more indicative of that than I put up a TikTok, YouTube short SportsWrap short on Sunday after he won. And the level of animosity and hatred towards that man, and let's be honest, it's overt racism and covert racism that exists. Some of the comments I couldn't even allow to be in my feed because they were so bad. And then the others who were like, oh, they let him win. Really? Like, that's the best you got is they let him win. It just blows my mind. So we'll talk about that a little bit more with Tino. But I want to get your thoughts because you're a WNBA fan. I'm watching Paige Bueckers in this rookie season of hers. And I watched her last night. I think she had 21-7 in a loss for the Dallas Wings. I got to tell you something. I think she really might wind up being better than Caitlin Clark. And I think it was Gino that said it. And he said some things that were way off base about Caitlin Clark, about, could she handle the physical aspect? She's going to get her you-know-what kicked, all that stuff. But the overriding theme he had was that Paige Bueckers was going to be the best player in the WNBA and not Caitlin Clark. And Clark's had her injury issues this year, and that's obviously contributed to some of what we've seen in terms of the shooting numbers and all that. But I watch Paige Bueckers, man. The stuff that she's able to do off the dribble, she can distribute the basketball as well. She really, I don't think it's a stretch to think she could be better than Caitlin Clark. And the big advantage she has, Robert, is she's the second big star.
There you go.
She doesn't come in with that spotlight and pressure that Caitlin's always going to have on her. She gets to kind of be just a little bit in the shadow, and I think that's going to allow her to really excel.
Well, there's a few things at play here. You mentioned one. The first thing is Paige Bueckers was the #1 high school recruit in the country. I mean, she was a star at the ESPYs winning awards at 19 years old. She just got hurt. She just got injured. And then the second part is what I always like to call the Michael Jordan, North Carolina part. And she went to UConn. You can't score 30 at UConn because they got 4 other 5-star, players. So a little bit of that gets dampened. Like, the only person that could stop Michael Jordan was Dean Smith. So that gets dampened a bit. But the most important part, the most important part that you just mentioned is she can just play. And she just relax. There's no like the Wings are a terrible team. When Caitlin Clark started, what was it, 1-8 or 1-9, whatever it was, the amount of media pressure on her to be great and to make the team great, it was overwhelming. It's still overwhelming. And then we have her teammate, Sophia Cunningham, who was on a different team last year, coming out and admitting that they just didn't want to give her a little rookie hazing. They wanted to humble her. They went extra above and beyond than what they would go. And Paige doesn't have to deal with that. She's generally liked by everybody. She fits in well, and she just gets to be Paige. And I can't, in my mind, being able to play relaxed when you're already talented as she is such an advantage over every time you play. There's a million people that have some sort of opinion on it. I don't know if she's going to be better than Caitlin Clark, because Caitlin Clark has a particular set of skills that you don't really see in the WNBA. But Paige Bueckers is just, you're going to get 20-5 every game. Yeah. She's just rock hard, solid. And sometimes that's better than being, it's like the Russell Westbrook. You know what I mean? Caitlin Clark is the Russell Westbrook experience, but sometimes you need Chris Paul.
I think Paige is a little faster off the dribble. I think she can get up shots against anybody. And again, she's not facing, that same crazy double team that kid. I get it. But I was watching her last night, and I was blown away watching the highlight reel on her and watching her throughout this season. I was just blown away at what Paige Bueckers is doing here in the early going. And you wonder if Caitlin Clark's even going to be able to be a factor here for the Fever down the stretch.
In the end, Jason, ball don't lie. And I always tell people this about Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, whoever. In the end, popularity is Kim Kardashian is popular for nothing. But when you're in a sport, that's gonna have separation at some point. After the years go by and say, yeah, Kevin Durant was better than the guy that drafted before him. Oh yeah, Dwayne Wade should have been. Oh man, why did Giannis was the 18th pick? Oh, Jokic was 41. in the end, ball don't lie. And if Paige ends up being she may never be as popular as Caitlin Clark, but she may end up being a better player. And then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
By the way, Indiana and Dallas, actually, and I don't know if Caitlin Clark's going to be, I don't know if she's back yet, but Indiana and Dallas play tonight in Dallas.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That might be worth watching. Now I'm going to see Fantastic Four today.
I think you'll like it.
But you already set me up for disappointment when you talked about you weren't a fan of Pedro Pascal in this movie.
Yeah. Well, you got to tell me what you think. The movie itself, it's fine. It's good. It's very heartwarming, and I think you'll like it. I think it's just because I watch too much TV and movies and stuff, and I just see his face all the time. It's like, okay, I mean, I get your money, but man, there got to be some other actors out there.
Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online, always hangs out with us on the show on Fridays. Have a great weekend, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
You too.
And we're coming back. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes on this Friday edition of SportsWrap. And if it's a Friday, ladies and gentlemen, that could only mean one thing. Means this guy is here. Tino Pattigno, our NASCAR betting insider, our Johnny on the spot, every Friday on the show. Catch him on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio on the weekends, dispensing handicapping advice on NASCAR, also on Tubi, and he joins us here on the show. So before we get to the race in Iowa this week, I got to get your thoughts on the record here on this show about what Bubba Wallace accomplished last weekend in Indy. Getting a win, getting himself into the playoffs, playing his way, winning his way into the playoffs. Now that we've had sort of a week to marinate in it, as you look back on it, what stands out to you?
Well, to me, for him to snap a 100-race winless streak in the Brickyard 400, a crown jewel race for NASCAR. Not only a career-defining win for Bubba Wallace, but a career-defining season. If you look at how he's been racing thus far this year, we talked with him earlier this year on this show. He mentioned getting those stage points and putting themselves in good positions to be up there to try to win. This is a perfect example of that. They had a fast car at Indy, capitalize on that. Pitch strategy was key, which it always is at that type of racetrack. But the fact that he was able to hold off some of the best drivers in the sport, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, multiple times on the restarts in overtime to get the win after he was going to win it cleanly before the rain came out, and then they had to go and restart and go into overtime, everything like that. To me, this is why Bubba Wallace is now here. This is why we've been talking about him potentially winning races, because his mindset has changed this season. He's more composed, and he was able to go out and have a clutch performance. And now he's locked in the playoffs for the first time in his career as well.
Locked into the playoffs, and the last thing I want to get to, and then we'll talk about Iowa. Does this unlock him? Does this relax him? Could he win another race? Is there a spot on the calendar that you could see him winning again this year? And what kind of threat is he in the playoffs for you?
Yeah, so that's the craziest part about it and coolest thing, I would say, because we haven't seen this side of Bubba Wallace yet, right? We've seen him win before, and then he's gone on and have a solid season after that, but that was in the playoffs. That was at the end of the season. So now to see this happening at this point, yes, I think he can have a long playoff run. All that you need to do in order to get to the round of 8 or the round of 12, just be consistent, stay out of trouble. And that's sort of what that team has done a good job at thus far this season, getting points, getting top 10 finishes, him having that confidence boost and momentum. I think he gets a strong top 5 finish this race this weekend, and also another of other times in the playoffs to potentially contend for a championship.
Iowa will not be one of those spots where I think he wins. The short track there for this week, and now you start to look at 13 different winners. And you've got 16 playoff spots, and that leaves Tyler Reddick at 14, I believe. Let me make sure I have this correct. It leaves, Ross Chastain, Ryan Preece at 14? Do I have these right? I want to make sure I have these right here.
It'd be Tyler Reddick at 14 right now in the current playoff standings.
Right. Yes. So it's Reddick at 14, Alex Bowman at 15, and Chris Buescher at 16. And Ryan Preece just outside the bubble, 42 behind Chris Buescher. What do you think about Preece this week? He is a short track specialist. I feel like this is a spot for him this week. What do you think?
Yeah, it definitely is. Honestly, it's the spot. This team has been there. They've been in contention. They've had fast cars, and now it's about the timing of it all. We saw Bubba Wallace win last weekend. This is a trend in NASCAR that I've seen in recent years, where if a driver outside the bubble wins, locks themselves into the playoffs, we can potentially see that continue to happen. And for a driver in Ryan Preece, who not only has fast equipment but maximizes his days and gets himself in position to win races on a short track, this is something where they have to have this race circled. Brad Keselowski finished inside the top 10 here, strong race last year, and they're a part of the same team. So I expect Ryan Preece to go out 50-1 right now. Earlier in the week, he was 80-1 on some books. So the books are continuing to think of Preece as an underdog, which they should. But here, I believe he has a really strong chance to win, like you said.
Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and Ryan Blaney, who won this race last year, all at 5-1. Denny Hamlin at plus 750. William Byron at plus 850. Give me some other thoughts. If not Ryan Preece, where are you looking?
Well, you got to look at those three favorites, like you mentioned. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, all just have dominated the short tracks in the next-gen era. They've won 11 of the last 14 of them. So those three guys, if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with Kyle Larson. Now, to me, Ryan Blaney was the driver that dominated the end of the race at Iowa last year. He was really strong there, and he's been strong on those flat tracks, short tracks like Phoenix as well that we can kind of compare. But for Larson specifically, he won stage 1, second in stage 2, led 80 laps, and the reason why he had to finish outside the top 20 was he got into an accident, just being extra aggressive, flying through the field because they pit for a loose wheel, and then he was just coming back from the entire field, passing a lot of drivers in this race last year. That was something that, a lot of people may forget because they look at the results and see Kyle Larson outside the top 10. Well, this was Kyle Larson's race to lose last year, and he did just that. I expect him to sort of get back from that standpoint. Christopher Bell is another strong option, like you mentioned here at this one.
In the final 30 seconds, give me some potential surprises that you like, some particular bets that you're looking at for Sunday.
For sure. Well, for an underdog winner, Joey Logano, who was up there last weekend at Indy, had a blown tire. He's 10-1 right now. I think that's a fair price for value play in Logano fishing in the top 10 here last year. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a long shot top 10, 7-1 right now. Bubba Wallace also plus 130 for a top 10. I like that with the strong momentum they have right now.
That's Tino Pattigno. You can catch him on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio this weekend on all the betting advice you need for this weekend's race in Iowa, and catch him on Tubi as well. Well, we can't ask the question anymore. When's Bubba going to win? We got to find something else to talk about, and I'm sure he's happy about that. Tino, always appreciate you, my man. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
We're coming back. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for another Friday and another week in the books. I don't know where the time's going. We've got a couple of reminders for you. Sports Wrap Weekends. Sports Wrap with Jason Paige. You can watch us on the weekends. 30-minute wrap-up show available on many of these same affiliates. If not, check your local listings for time and schedule. We've also got the Sports Wrap with Jason Paige podcast, which you have not subscribed to yet. If you haven't, go and do so. If you have, thank you for doing so. We are on every podcasting platform imaginable: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, and more. Go and subscribe today. You can also watch this show on over 270 affiliates in the U.S. and Canada. But in addition to that, you can also watch us on Spotify. Through the Spotify app. You can watch the show commercial-free Monday through Friday, and on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Paige YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We have the show there. We have YouTube Shorts, Sports Wrap Shorts, we call them. Go and check that out as well. Always lots of fun. Because on the weekends, when news breaks, we need to sometimes, cover it, and that's what Sports Wrap Shorts are for. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Are you going to survive? I looked at the off screen, and you were like coughing up. You okay? You make it?
Oh, thank goodness. I couldn't tell if the interns had me on screen or not when that whole thing was happening.
Okay.
But yeah, I took a deep breath and something went back, and it was not good there for a couple of seconds.
Well, we're going to have to do the Heimlich on you. All right, here we go. So we had the Hall of Fame game on Thursday night. the big takeaways, Jared Goff better not get hurt. That's my big, my two big takeaways are Jared Goff better, I have two takeaways. One, Jared Goff better not get hurt because they're in a world of trouble with Kyle Allen and who'd they have? Who was the other guy they had playing last night? It wasn't very good. Doesn't really matter. Chargers.
That would be Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker, that's who it was.
Former Tennessee quarterback.
Former Tennessee quarterback, yes. I would have rather had TJ Hooker out there than Hendon Hooker. It was really bad. So just hope Jared Goff stays healthy. It's like that scene in A League of Their Own where they have the woman who's not so attractive and they say, "Oh, what should we do with her?" And they said, "Have a lot of night games." Well, in the case of the Lions, it better be we better not lose Jared Goff or the season's a wrap. Trey Lance played well though.
I was gonna say
Trey Lance acquitted himself nicely in 3 quarters of football last night. And who knows? I mean, could he make it to backup status for Justin Herbert? It's a possibility.
I mean, yeah, if his competition's going to be DJU, I actually don't know the Chargers roster well enough to know if they have another quarterback roster who just didn't play in the game and they were going with the 3rd and 4th strings, which again, in a Jim Harbaugh offense, you can never rule out in the preseason.
True.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Jason, though. He did. He looked good against 3s and 4s defensively, but still. It was a drastic improvement from the Trey Lance that we were used to seeing. I'll say Omarion Hampton, who I know a lot of fantasy people are very high on, looked good. Kamani Vidal, who was relevant for a couple of weeks in that Chargers backfield, looked all right. At times, I don't know. To me, the thing that you can actually take away from preseason is line depth, offensive and defensively. And I'll tell you this right now, the Chargers have a very deep offensive line.
Move to Micah Parsons because everybody just thought it was a foregone conclusion the Cowboys and Micah would get this thing worked out. But you saw some reporting from Diana Rossini this morning, who will be on the show next week, by the way, from The Athletic, friend of the show. And it sounds like things are getting contentious between the two sides, Sam.
Yeah, so I'll read the tweet from our friend Diana Rossini. The Micah Parsons-Cowboys relationship has deteriorated to the point where the star pass rusher is considering drastic measures, which could include a trade request or even a declaration that he is severing his relationship with the team, per multiple sources familiar with the situation. She also went on to say that negotiations are not even currently ongoing between the two sides. I mean, Jerry Jones, you are putting on a masterclass of how not to run a football team and how not to treat your star athletes. I mean, it's a big blow up down in Big D, Jason.
And the recent comments from Stephen Jones probably didn't help all that much as well. Closer to you in the DMV, what's going on with Terry McLaurin? Because it sounds like that thing's reached DEFCON 1 with him essentially saying, I want to be traded. Is this just the last chip to play? The last piece of the puzzle? Because it sounds like this thing is even further away than it was a couple of days ago, Sam.
It does, but it also feels to me, Jason, like this is very similar to the Brandon Ayuk thing we saw in San Francisco. What was that, last season, 2 off seasons ago? I don't remember, but you and I talked about it on the show. When you'll remember, Brandon Ayuk requested a trade and then like a week later had a new contract and was happy. I think that the fine line that the Commanders are going to have to walk here is they're going to have to guarantee McLaurin more money to bring him down from that exorbitant $33 million a year price tag that he wants to exceed set by DK Metcalf. I don't know how this ends, but I don't think it ends with Terry McLaurin in another uniform. I won't say the same thing about the Micah Parsons thing. I think Terry stays in DC.
All right. Remains to be seen, and a lot of time still to play out here in the preseason. That is going to wrap it up for us on this Friday. We appreciate you tuning in. Thank you to Tino Pattigno. Thank you to Robert Littal. Thank you to Cameron Maybin. Thank you to you, Sam Yarnell. And thanks to all of you for tuning in, not just today, but all week long. I'm Jason Paige. We'll see you back here next week or this weekend for the weekend edition of Sports Wrap. Bye-bye.